Hey everyone, it's Jason. Welcome to the beginning of an unboxing series for Primal The Awakening. This is a combat game where you fight giant monsters or dragons. It's very cool. So you play in a little tiny arena, a little circle, and it's intimate close. I the best as like boss fights, like Monster Hunter style gameplay. Um, it's going to be a series of videos because the box is friggin' huge. Um, so if I try to find something like compare it to, so like there is compared to a CD. So you can see this box is very massive for the first one, but it gives you 4 playable heroes as well as I think 12 or 13 different monsters to fight. So there's a lot of content. Then we will be going through the expansions. There are 3 regular expansions that add 2 more monsters each. There's the Kickstarter exclusive stretch goals, which adds another 3 monsters. The Hunter box, which adds 2 more playable characters. There's a special terrain box with some extras add-ons, some 3D terrain. Big giant box for sleeving cards, which we'll go over in the add-on section. And then we have an extra little book. So there's plenty of content. I want to make sure that I spend enough time giving this game the love it deserves. Because it's crazy ridiculous on how much stuff is in here. So I just want to give the scope of what we're going to be doing. So there'll be several parts of this video. Which I'll definitely link in each video, all the comments. Linking which video so you guys can keep track of. But I might end up breaking, obviously, I'll do like the first video here will be kind of the overview of the game and going through some of the basic rules. And then the second video, I'll probably jump into the hunters. And we'll see how it takes. Either I'll try and do all 4 hunters in one set video, but I might end up breaking up in 2 and 2. And then with the monsters, I might just break them up 2 monsters per each video. So it's going to be a bunch of smaller videos as opposed to some of my longer videos, hopefully, because I want to make sure, again, I focus enough on each different character and their element, because there's a lot for each of them to go through to make it really exciting to look at. Alright, so let me clean this back up, and we'll crack the base game open and see what's in there. So upon opening the box, the first thing we're going to get are the quote-unquote miniatures. These are all our different monsters we're going to fight. So we got 2, 4, 6... 7, 8, and then even the bottom of the box, we got 9, 10, 11, 12. 2 for each of the different 6 element types. And then we have the massive The Awakening, who's even bigger than them, who's kind of like the final boss in the game. So it's 13 compared to our little tiny hunters here. And we will look at these guys a lot closer when I go through each one. I just got to shuffle. That's half the box is just these bunch of miniatures. And that, again, miniatures is such a strange word to say. Then if we actually get into the box, we got some extra boards here. We got some, sorry for the shaky cam here. We got some player boards, some monster boards, campaign booklet. We'll look at all this a little bit closer. Plenty of extra little things there. One big element of the game. Campaign guides. We have some tiles, some tokens, a bunch of tokens as well. As well as then, if we lift this little flap up, we have all these different cards which are I have sorted out a little bit by different monsters. So each one has their own deck. Plus each hunter has their own deck. Plus a bunch of other item cards. And then even more so as we go over to this stack, we have all of our different weapons. If I can figure out where my camera's at, we have all our different weapons over here. So one thing to note is that this box will hold all of the content in the game, unless you would like to sleeve it. Then there will absolutely be no room anymore. So if you're someone that sleeves all your cards, you're going to immediately have to find another solution. I did show one big box of a box for sleeving cards that you could have bought during the campaign. I don't know if it'll for sure hit retail, or at least on the website, which I like to usually address who this is. It's Reggie Studios. See if they have a better logo there. Sometimes these companies really promote themselves, sometimes they don't. Check the back of the book. Might not have any better information. Alright, here we go. Just a little bit better. Reggie Studios is the name of the game. Here's some of the people awesome people that worked on the game. I could link to their website on here, but they don't. Well, if you look it up, they might have some of this stuff available in their store. And that box is to hold all the content. So again, if you're not only buying half of this, like just the base game, you buy a big box of sleeves, you're going to have a lot of empty space as well, because you're not getting all the other content. And all the tokens we just then get dropped down into the bottom here, and they have the little baggies for them. So again, whether that's what you like to do or not, that is your choice. But we'll look at the other stuff later. Alright, I'm going to go set my camera down. Alright, so let's dive in a little bit more of what Primal actually is. So it is, let's see if I can find a good picture of this, so it has a lot of content. I'm going to go through the rules, we're going to kind of go through what some of the different modes and all this stuff are, but I'm not going to, this isn't a how to play. But you're going to play against the monster who will have their own board. They'll have their own board, which has spots in it for behavior cards, which are reactions. So the way the game is basically played, let me just actually grab the board here. Let's look at this quick. So a rough idea of how the game is essentially played is you are going to be playing as your hunters, and you will be moving around the board, trying to attack the monster and doing different stuff. Attack them and avoid their attacks, hitting their weak spots. And then periodically the monster is going to move to turn towards whichever character. And it's going to change its different weak areas where it can get hit. But what makes it really cool is that every one of the hunters gets a special deck of cards. So they'll have special masteries, they'll have special cards with different colors on them, which indicate different stuff. And they'll try and be playing them in a sequence to do various things throughout the game. So, just as a quick one here, let's grab one of our first cards here. Go thing attack here. So it's like aggro strike. So it's increase the damage the attack deals by 1 for each of those symbols in your discard pile. So it's an aggro symbol. So the more he attacks, he gets to do more damage. Or you can have a shield dance, where your mastery is focused, ignore the stamina cost of this card. But if you played a yellow card before this, you just increase the damage done by 3. So playing cards in certain orders will let you do different stuff. So if he discards this to generate stamina for a red card, he gets extra stamina to do it. In the attack, reduce the amount of cost stamina to the next card you played. So this makes his cards a little bit cheaper. And then it has a deck building option. So as you play through the game, somebody's going to say S on the bottom, you can add extra cards in there. There's a limited amount of deck building, so you can switch up your character a little bit that way. Then you are also getting basic equipment, so he has this great sword. This character, he starts with this, which has its own special maneuver, its own damage, and its deck building icons. You have 6 of each. And then throughout the game, you can purchase elemental weapons. You get a fire weapon, which changes his deck composition, so he's going to have a little less of that, but that's a new ability, more damage. You can upgrade those cards later on, or you can choose to switch to different elemental weapons. Each character can only use their own special weapons. You have like the great sword, we have the great bow wielder, and there's a bunch of different options. You have a lot of different choices to make in there, as well as you can get various extra equipment, which also again can have levels. We have a fire gauntlet, a buckler, a skeletal spear, and then you also get various armors as well. You get crystalline armor, thunder armor, iron plates. You can get helms. There's potions. So there's all this different stuff you can do to like change up your character, but you're trying to do this to defeat the monster. And you do this by playing your cards in order, playing them in sequences. But what makes the game really cool is because the monster then reacts to what you do. So it's going to have special reaction cards. They're going to basically look like this. So it's saying if you're fighting this monster and you play a red card, he just can now do this activation icon. So you get this kind of risk reward. Sometimes you have to, I have to risk you in my red because it's my attack. It does more damage. But that means the monster is now going to get to do something back at me. Now, it could be they could just turn to hit you. They could just automatically do damage. They get a special ability. It could be a bunch of various different things, again, depending on every monster, because they're all different. But it might be the same thing as they might have one that does it if you use a defend card to help prevent some damage. She might have to opt. Do I not take defense cards to avoid that reaction? But then I might end up taking more damage later on. So it's a very unique system on how it works because it goes back and forth. The monster does not get their own specific turn. Hunters play a card, so player 1 here would play his cards during his turn for whatever he could play, and then the monster reacts to it. And then there's a slight monster phase where they get to do some stuff, but they don't have like a full deck to play. It's all automated. Yes, it's very interesting. What's also cool is all the monsters have stance cards. So they have 4 different levels. They have a prologue level, and then they have difficulties 1, 2, and 3. And difficulties, each level of difficulties is gonna give them more hits they can take, more damage, and when they change their stances, it's gonna change their weak points. These red spots are their weak points that they can actually take damage in, so they can take maybe more damage later on. But that's gonna be different again for each and every monster. Plus, it's also gonna change up their behavior decks. There are some cards that are only gonna be used in the prologue in level 1, and there are some that will only be used in level 1 and level 2, and there will be some that will only be used in level 2 and level 3. So as you progress, you kind of take out some of the easier cards, and you play some of the harder cards. They have special peril and objective cards, which are their special abilities per stance, or special things you can do with the objectives to try and really hurt them. But yes, it's really cool idea of a game because you get to... It's a very intimate battle. It's not running around doing all this other stuff. It's not, oh, we gotta stop the battle. There's a buying phase. We have to go back in. It's just constantly jumping in. You're in the boss battle, and that's it. And you defeat the boss. What is also fun is there are 2 different modes. There's Expedition mode. So if we go into Expedition mode, it should have these listed in here. It's going to pull up, for like example, for Grigorix. There's 2 different setups for him to do. He has special rule setup. 2 different ways to set up the map with different tokens on there and which ones you need. Same thing if I flip to like Morax here. He has his different little bit of setup. And these are just very simple, quick, like, hey, I want to fight this guy, boom. Go ahead and play that and do that. Then you pick what level you want to play against. You want to play level 1, 2, or 3. Then depending on which level you pick, determines how many points you just spend for your equipment. So if I play level 2, I can pick level 2 weapons and armor, and then I can change up my deck building, so I might get a couple of my unlocked cards right away. And you can kind of go ahead and just play one-off scenarios. The other thing you can do is hop straight up into the campaign. Which this, and here's a map of our entire region, which is really cool. The map of Thyria. Thyria, maybe? Yeah, so when you're playing through the campaign, there's lots of very big story. So as you read through chapter 1, you're going to get all this extra story. It's going to tell you what to do. Read all this stuff. You're going to get all these different options to what you get to do throughout the game. And there's a lot of content in here. There's war. There's the boss. Let's skip over him for now. And then if you do like mission 1 here, which is the memory of the desert, you're going to fight Toramak. And it's going to have another little setup picture like we saw in the other one. He has some other special rules. It's going to maybe change up some of his different things on how they work. There's introductions, there's conclusions. Depending on whether you won or lost is going to depend on what you did do next. You might move into the next mission. You might go all the way through. And in the base game, there are 30 missions. So there's quite a few different options to do. And then as you play through on them, you're going to get your different campaign sheets. So you'll have a campaign sheet so you can keep track of which different monster you've beaten and how many times. You get elements you can collect throughout the game. So this is your forge, actually, which is how you make new items. What level you can do potions. What part of the chapter, and so actually this is kind of neat too, because it upgrades, so you're doing parts 1 through 3 of 11 different chapters. You're going to actually, eventually you're going to level up your monsters. So you have to fight level 1, then 2, then 3. They have all the different quests in here. So there's 49, because this goes through all the expansions. They just have one sheet to go through all of that. You get your actual character sheets. You get to keep track of your skills you unlocked. So this way, if we play like 2 or 3 games and you want to come back later, you can pick this up and be like, oh, we've done this quest, we beat this monster, we've done this, we've done these. I didn't check my skill tree. Oh, I've unlocked A1 and I've unlocked B1 and B2. I've gotten these number of materials which I can use to spend. You can put notes in there for lore if you want to remember stuff. So it's really cool because you get the 2 different options on which one to play. Because some people will love to sit down and play a campaign, level up their characters and go. Other people might be like, nah, I just want to hop in and play, but I don't want to always be stuck. Like, oh, am I always going to be stuck with the base level characters? I'm never going to get these expansion cards. Nope, you can go ahead and add them up whenever you want. You want to start with your, you want to start with your level 2 Igurian Sunder Sword, go ahead. You can go ahead and start it. It probably unlocks, giving you maybe 2 points for unlocking your cards. You can pick 2 different sets of cards to do. It's really neat that you can mix and match all that. Plus, if you have a fire sword, you can have a fire sword. You can have a Venom helmet. You can have thunder armor. You don't have to have all the same things. There's a benefit for having all the same things. Or similar things, because every monster has its own weakness. And playing against them on their weaknesses definitely makes them easier to beat. Because, well, I won't say that. If you fight a monster, so here's a list of weaknesses. So those 4 are weak to fire. If you have 2 different pieces of equipment that are fire, you get to add extra cards or remove cards from your deck. So it gives you a little bit more deck building options. So it could give you an extra card, or it could let you maybe remove another one, which might offset some of your weapon stuff. So it's pretty interesting there too. So if you're having difficulties, it might be, oh, I need to switch to a different weapon, or I need to do this or that. We have giant player boards for each character, so they have spot for their equipment. Special item, they get some potions you can make. On the back, a little bit of lore about each one. We'll go over them. We'll go over them in the other video. And then we have the same thing for the monsters here. So we have on the top here, it's going to show what their weaknesses are. Spot for their behavior cards that they react to. Some spots on the bottom for some of their different decks and peril cards and stuff like that. Stances, peril. And on the top, every single one has 10 health. You might be like, well, that's kind of dumb. Why does every single monster have the same amount of health? Doesn't make them seem different. These are just their overall full hit points. So if I'm on stance 1 for Varaxin, for example, it might take 2 hits or wounds to do a point of damage. And then it might take another 2, and then when he gets to, let's say 3 or 4, he might flip to stance 2. Then now it might take 5 hits or wounds to do another point of damage up until I get to 7. Then when he's at his 3rd stance, it might take 10 hits to all of a sudden do damage. And this can vary also. You can get up into some of the, in the Kickstarter expansion, they have nightmare version of the characters. Some of them, by the end, cost 30 hits from your character to even do 1 hit point. So yeah, even though technically they have 10 hit points, if one guy takes 2, then takes 5, then takes 10, versus another guy that takes 3, 5, and 7, they're going to come out at different amounts of overall health. This is just an easy way for you to keep track of all of them. On the back, I think they just show big pictures of all the monsters, which is really cool. Alright, I'm going to swap this guy out. Let's look at one of the other monsters quick. We have big giant, like beetle and stuff. Cool. So that is those. I do want to look at a couple other things before I kind of skim through the rule book. First, is we do have our forges. So we have one for potions. So during the game, during the campaign and stuff, you'll actually earn different flowers. You'll find them in the game. You can spend them to buy potions, which can give you extra attacks, stamina, movement, things like that. And then we have some for each weapon. So at level 1, if I have a level 1 forge, I can make any of my weapons for my 4 base characters, or my different armors. There are the fire ones, and they cost various things. So they cost some blood and some sort of resource from defeating monsters as well. So you have to progress through the campaign to be able to get these. And then as you play the game, you'll unlock level 2s, so you can buy the level 2 versions, and you'll unlock level 3s, so you can eventually get the level 3 versions. So it's a neat little extra system they put into the game. And then the last thing I kind of want to look at a little bit first is we also have our quest board. So during the campaign, you'll have various times you'll be told to put these various quests on in certain spots. And then you pick which one you're going to do. So let's say, oh, we're going to start with quest number 1. You'll flip it over. It'll tell you which quest to go to. And you're going to do the Memory of the Desert, and that's who you're going to fight. And then if you lose it, it goes back down. You can select a different quest. You don't have to keep playing the same thing over and over. That guy was too hard right now. Let's try something different. But then after a while, these kind of start to disappear and refresh. So you might miss certain story elements. So that's what also makes the campaign really fun, because it's not just play through 10 missions or 10 battles and boom, you're done. That's it. And every time you play, it's the same exact thing. You get to do different options. You get to rebuild your characters. You get to refight different monsters at different levels. You get to fight them in different orders, which might make a difference. Maybe the one time you fight, like maybe the first time you fight Brax in here, you don't have any elemental powers, right? But he's level 0. He's the prologue version. He's super easy. Then like next time you play that campaign, maybe he might not show up until battle 7. Also, now you're level 2 and all your equipment. You could pull out some Frost, Horn, or Coral cards, and you'd be able to have a weakness to like make him weaker, but he's also going to be much stronger. So it adds to a really cool element of the game, is being that you're not going to play this. The core gameplay is going to be the same every time, but the actual game, it's going to be different. Alright, so let's hop through the book a little bit. So here we're talking about, you can do prologue, go ahead and start tutorial, have campaign expedition mode. I'm going to put my camera up a little bit more so I don't have to lean as far forward. There's a prologue story as well, but so I'm not going to jump through all of this. But yeah, it does start off with the monsters. They'll have all their own different stuff. They'll have special struggle tokens and an attrition deck. Their behavior cards work fairly simple, and we'll look at more of this when a little bit more in depth when we get to each one. But you'll have reaction icon on the back and a refresh values. This is also really fun. So then you flip it over as basic different text and aggression icons. It might have a boost icon as well, which might trigger at certain points. If they've struggled too much against you, they might get an extra effect that kicks off as well. The refresh value is a really neat thing as well, because it means, like I was saying earlier, if they have like a defense symbol out, you could just opt to maybe not play a defense card to avoid that. But what will happen is over time, either you're going to trigger a reaction, or they're going to refresh and disappear, and new ones are going to come out. So your strategy can't just be, oh, there's 2 defense cards out, I'll just avoid them by not playing defense. Because eventually they'll go away, and then maybe now they'll all become attack. And also now you're switching from crap, if I want to keep attacking, I'm going to have to trigger all these, or I could switch to defense, but then I can't do damage. So that's kind of a neat idea too. So the monsters are always constantly changing up. We have our different hunters. Each one of the main hunters in this set have their own special weapons. Garon with the great sword, Thorg with the hammer, Mira with the great bow, and Lajar. I'm gonna mess this name up. Lanar with the sword and shield. There are also 2 expansion characters whose names I don't remember off the top of my head, but they have dual blades and the giant gun. There is a solo mode. The minimum size for Hunters group is 2. You can play a game solo by taking the place of other players by controlling at least 2. So if you don't like playing with other players, you can play 2 to 4 players, or you can just play a 2-player game, which is basically a solo game, which is you playing 2 players by yourself. When you get the other Hunters, you can play up to a 6-player game, I believe. There are 4 basic action cards. There are 2 defensive, dodge and parry, which are green and yellow, and offensive, which are maneuver and attack. So yeah, you're going to be playing these in different orders. They're going to trigger different things, but yeah, your damage, your attack cards are going to do the ones that you do the most damage. Maneuver is going to do some damage, will possibly getting you around the board a little bit more. Parrying cards are going to help you, like, prevent some damage or move you around to dodge, to get out of the way. Dodge is going to be more just about moving. But then it's also cool about this as well is each character gets their own deck of cards with their own special things. Some abilities are obviously going to be like shared between each other, but they're all fairly unique cards. They each have their own special mechanic as well. Then they also get these mastery cards. So at the beginning of the game, you start with 1 special card that is unfocused, and if you perform certain abilities, you can flip it over and it gets you an extra special ability to use for the rest of the game. And then these are also, with your upgrading abilities, you can get different ones of these too, so you can then change your character throughout the game. Then we have equipment. We have helms and armors, which we kind of show to give you your armor, which basically becomes your health. So your weapon becomes your damage, and your armor and helmet become your health. So upgrading them and changing them to different ones is going to change how much damage you do, how much health you have, and stuff like that. On our combat board, we're going to have 4 different sides. So depending on which direction the monster is facing, he'll have a front, a rear, and 2 flanks, which are triggered by various different things. On the bottom of their miniature, they have these little lines there. Just shows, which way they're facing forward at any given time. So you can actually line them up with the arrows on the board. And then here, so it's showing this was his front. If he rotates one direction, then his rear can be there, his front can be there, his flank can be over here. So depending on which way he goes or which way a person moves, they can move to different directions. There's environment and terrain, which we get to interact with. This is kind of neat. So it's just showing the prologue, what you need to set all of this up. Here it's showing your starting hunter, so you use their starting decks, plus your armor and all that. And then the basis of how the game is set up. So the hunter has his abilities there. Different characters, all your tokens sitting there. And then how to play. So let's kind of do a quick run through on how to play. Step 1, consume. Each player may resolve the consume ability on one of their cards. Generally a potion of some sort. They only resume 1 consume each round. This might be a potion to heal you, give you, again, extra damage, haste, something like that. Monster upkeeps. This is the small monster turn. It has behavior refresh. Look at the behavior cards. Discard the behavior card, the lowest refresh value, and replace it with the top card. So again, these will constantly be changing each round, so that way they're not just saying you can't constantly just avoid a certain card. And then struggle. Monster gains 1 struggle. Each time the monster gains struggle, place a number of struggle tokens on the monster board. Now these will be affected by various effects. Sometimes they'll get something like, hey, if it has 3+ struggle counters, it does this. Then the player's turn. The aggro token becomes your first player. Player's turn take turns in clockwise order, start the first player. So this is also another really neat idea of the game, is because it's not player A, B, C, D in that order. And it's not player A went first time, then the next round player B goes. It's whoever takes the aggro token. So you can do various things to possibly force yourself to have the aggro token, but I believe there's also monster cards that could force an aggro token on you. So you could choose to go first, like, hey, I need to go first so I draw the monster's attention away from my teammates, because again, it's all co-op, but there could be a card that forces aggro on one of your other characters, which might mess stuff up. Consuming potions, we kind of talked about. Struggling Unleash. When a monster gains enough struggle, accumulated amount equal to 3 or higher per player, all players suffer attack to the monster's damage. Remove struggle tokens as 1 per player. So this is, you can play, I think it's the parry cards, or the defense. I think it's the parry cards. It's one of the cards. I have to double check which one. Lets you get rid of struggle tokens off the monster. Otherwise, if you keep letting him struggle too much, he's gonna out, because you're not letting him get out of this circle, which is why he's struggling, because he just, you're trying to defeat him. He would rather possibly try and leave, but you're keeping him in there, so he's struggling, essentially is the idea. And then he's eventually gonna, like, go crazy and just attack, no matter what. So a player has couple of different things they can do on their turn. This book is really hard to hold up for a while. They have movement phase. Summary: move to an adjacent sector and remain in your current position on the board. Action: player cards one at a time, resolving their special effects. The attrition phase: check whether you suffer attrition damage based on the number of defensive cards you played. And end of turn: discard any played cards, replay your hand. The monster turns to the player with the aggro token. So movement's pretty simple. You pay 1 to move to adjacent section. During your movement phase, you can only move once, unless others specify you must pay 1 per every move. If you do not move, you become threatened and take a threatened token. Note, if you would have been threatened, you are already threatened, keep your token. So there's different trigger effects that'll happen. So if you don't move around every turn, you're going to become threatened, and sometimes, again, it's the risk of the game. I need that extra point of stamina, which is basically what you use to pay for your cards. So I can't afford to move because I need it, or I need to attack his flank, which I'm already standing in. So I'm gonna have to risk taking damage, and getting one of these threatened tokens. Players can move their threatened tokens by moving out of the board. When you move, you immediately discard it. So you might have to play a different card that lets you move later on. It's possible. Stamina cost. Action cards in your hand represent both combat options and your amount of stamina. So on the bottom of each card, it'll have little blood symbols or droplets. Show your stamina. So to pay for this 3-cost card, I have to discard these 2 cards. Fairly simple. If you generate more stamina, you need to pay any supplies lost. So if I discarded 2 and 2, I had 4 to pay for a 3, I would just lose 1. Very simple. Action cards. So you get your phase, playing action card, activating abilities, the keyword action, or revive. Playing cards, you may play up to 5 action cards in your hand, resolving 1 at a time. The row of cards you play from left to right is called your sequence. In order to play action cards, you must first pay its stamina cost. When you play cards, resolve the ability and then specified effect depending on the colors. Red deals damage to monsters equal to your weapon damage. Attacks can only be played if you're in a sector of one of the monster's exposed sides. It's one of the red sides that would be on their card, like shown there. So when the monster turns, their things change. So they're showing if he turned the other direction, now he has 2 different sides. So that's going to make a big difference there. Blues are maneuver. They remove struggle tokens from the board. Dodge and parry, which are yellow, green and yellow, do not have any additional effect when played in your sequence, but when you play a dodge or parry card, simply resolve its ability. Note the number of cards you play during the sequence is important to avoid suffering damage. And then we have some cards that have aggro on there, so they have a bright red icon, which will draw that aggro token. Alright, then we kind of mentioned wounds earlier. Ooh, got out of focus there. So they have a toughness value, so when you inflict them, when you deal damage to a monster, place that number of damage tokens on the current stance card. If the total damage the monster equals sustained is higher than the current stance card's toughness value, inflict a wound, reduce the monster's health by 1. Move the amount of damage tokens equal to the toughness value. So its toughness value is 2 per player. So if you're playing a 4-player game, it would be 8 for him. And then they're showing stance 7, so it says progression value. So once he hits 7 health, he flips to his next level. As a monster suffers wound, become more dangerous. Monster health reaches progression level indicated on stance card. The current stance is complete and the monster advances to the next one. Remove any peril objective cards that correspond to that stance. So there's some cards that will, like when they change, they'll get a new peril card, which gives them new extra abilities. They could either gain or lose their objective card, which gets you an actual bonus. So kind of just showing a quick example is there. Let's assume Alice dealt 13 damage to Vrax in a single attack. She places 13 tokens on the stance card. The toughness is 2 per player, and a 2-player game makes it 4. She reduces the health by 1, and then removes 4 damage tokens. There are still 9 on there. You inflict a second wound, brings the monster's health down to 7, and removes another 4 damage tokens. At this point, there are still 5 on the tokens, but the stance progression has been reached. So she flips to stance 2, which then ups the damage to 3 per player, so she doesn't have enough. So the total damage would have been 13, inflict 2 wounds, and then heals, and then they have 5 left over. So it's kind of neat. So they sustain wounds over turn. Triggered sequences and triggered abilities. So various cards are going to have a lot of different stuff in here. For triggering your icons. Player decides in which order they want to resolve card abilities. So playing a card in a sequence might trigger multiple abilities from other cards you have in play. You get to decide which order they trigger. If they trigger multiple, you must resolve all game effects associated with the card, including triggered abilities and monster reactions, before playing another card. So here it's showing example 1. Alice plays Reactive Guard, the yellow card. It's a parry card, so that has no effect. But it does say it has a trigger. It says down arrow in a red before the card ability, which means the ability will trigger if her next card played is red. So she plays a card and it's red. And then the next card she plays is Dragon Strike, which is an aggro, so she takes the aggro token. By placing an attack, she triggers the card ability of both Reactive Guard and Aurelian Blade, which is her sword. So her sword shows he plays a red card, she gains the ability. Also triggers Dragon Strike's ability, because it says if she played a yellow card before this, she triggers that. So she has triggered 3 abilities on all 3 cards. She can decide which order she wants to do them in. So she draws 2 cards, one for Dragon Strike, one for Reactive Guard. So drawing doesn't make a difference in which order. And then finally, Dragon Strike being an attack card. She deals damage equal to just 4. But then she gets to do, I skipped the part where she does the top part of her blade first. It says, look to the top card of the Tristan deck, you may choose to discard it. So you're going to do this in different orders. The keyword assist has no effect when it's played. So assist down here is, if it's on another card, another player may discard a card with the assist keyword. If they do, the active player immediately draws a card. So this could kind of help give your teammate an extra card to play during a turn, maybe to pay for stamina cost, or to get another sequence in their cards, something like that. And these drawing cards are going to be very important for playing stamina, because you only have 5 cards in your turn at the beginning of your turn. So playing things that let you draw more cards will let you actually play 5 cards during your turn. Otherwise, there's no way you can have 5 cards in your hand and play 5 because you have to spend some of them for stamina. And there's another example here, which I'm not going to get into too much. And then you can focus your master if you hit certain things. Play these cards a certain order. You can flip those over. And then there's some other different triggering options. The bold text at the beginning of the ability usually begins with when or after a trigger keyword in bold or a triggering icon. So example, a bolded text on cover fire, a triggering keyword which is opening on Iron Blast, or an example of a trigger with an icon. Some abilities are triggered out of term of the triggering conditions are met. Mariah's cover fire happens when only happens simply follow the instruction set. Says like when another player would suffer attrition, you may discard this card to prevent that damage. We do have a revive action. Revive is an action that allows you to help other players recover faster from their KO status. Reviving a KO player helps you get back into the fight. Once per turn in action phase, if you're in a sector with another player, you may spend 2 stamina to revolve them. If you do flip that KO token to its black side, it's on its black side, flip it, remove it instead, and that player rises. So we'll see more about that in a minute. But that's another cool thing about this is if your player gets defeated, you're not out of the game. You have a couple of turns it's going to take you, unless your teammates come over and help you, to try and revive yourself. So it's it's really fun. Like it's like playing a video game, right? Your character gets down, you're sitting there on the ground, like laying there, like waiting for someone to come revive you. But if they take too long, it's not like I don't think you ever get eliminated from the game if they take too long, but you'll eventually get back up. But it's turns wasted, you're not getting to attack. End of the action phase. If you have two cards or more left in your hand, you gain 1 stamina token. So by not playing everything, you get a free stamina, which you can use your next turn, but you only may have 1 per turn, or at a time. Alright, then the next phase was the attrition phase. So this is another way monsters do damage to you. The more aggressively you play, the more likely you are to suffer attrition damage. So it's kind of saying, like, if you're getting up close and you're attacking them and hitting them, you're likely to get brushed up against them, or they're going to swat you and you're going to take some extra little minor damage. Not from them actually just, like, doing a direct attack on you, but it's kind of like them, like, turning and hitting you type of thing, or just stepping on you by accident type of idea, like bashing with their claw. So that's your attrition damage. Whereas if you're defending a lot, you get to ignore this. So reveal the top card of the attrition deck. Suffer attrition damage unless you have the number of defensive cards, yellow or green, equal to or higher than the value. Then deal damage to the monsters attacked to you. If you're instructed, reveal the top card of the deck, shuffle it. If you're threatened, reveal 2 attrition cards instead of 1, and give the worst outcome in terms of avoiding attrition damage. Yeah, so here Varaxian would say if he takes it, he does 1 damage to you. So here it's kind of showing this. In example 1, we got 1 attrition and we had 1 green card, so you avoid the damage. This player had a threatened icon because they didn't move, so they got a 1 and a 2, so they had to do the 2, but they only had 1 yellow, which is not enough to cover it, so they take 1 damage. If they would have moved at some point, they would have only gotten that 1 card, they would have been fine. So it makes for a lot of interesting stuff. Suffering damage, being knocked out. When your total sustained damage reaches or exceeds your health value, you are knocked out. If you're the active player, your turn ends immediately because you could get knocked out during the middle of your combat. Discard your entire hand. Add a wound card to your discard pile and shuffle it. Wound cards don't do anything other than just clog your deck up. So you might end up drawing cards. Your hand would have extra wounds that don't do anything. Either choose your helmet or armor that is not currently depleted, place a depleted token on it. Lay your miniature down, take a KO token. When you are KO'd, you do not be the target of any ability. When it would be your turn, you are knocked out, flip your KO to its black side. Then pass right to the next player. If your KO is on its black side, you rise. Discard it, draw your hand size, stand your miniature up. You're not KO'd, your turn is over. So you effectively lose 2 full turns. You lose the turn for the white side, You lose 3 turns because you get knocked out. So beginning of your turn, you flip it from the white side to the black side, so you lost that turn. Then the next time you flip it over, you remove it, so you lose that turn. So you lose 2 full turns, and then your third turn, and you finally get act again. If another player can come over and pay the cost before your turn comes up, then you only lose 1 turn. If someone can pay the second time, you can get revived right away. But that does mean that players have to spend their stamina not doing attacks and actions. Yeah, so pretty simple there. Depleted tokens. The health points in depleted equipment do not count towards your health value. So it's saying if your armor was 5 and your helm was 5, so you had 10 hit points, you still have 10 hit points. But if both your armor and health get depleted, you're out of the game until the end of the scenario. So you can actually get eliminated from the game if you get KO'd twice. So you do have to be careful not just to be charging in because it doesn't help anyone. There's an example of the wound card. It says at the end of the round, discard this card from your hand. It just sits in there and clogs up your deck. And there's 2 for each time you get knocked out. Yeah, very interesting. End of the player's turn. Discard your sequence. Discard all cards. Refill your hand. Draw cards from your deck until you reach your hand size, which is 5 by default. If you empty your deck this way, reshuffle and start a new deck. Note, if you have more cards in your hand than your hand size, discard down to your hand size limit. And then monster rotation. When you empty your deck, you draw or discard the last card of your deck. You suffer damage equal to your weapon level. This is called fatigue damage. So again, you want to draw cards so you have more cards, more options to do stuff during your turn. If you have 2 cards at the end of the turn anyhow, you get an extra stamina which will help you out. But then the downside is, the quicker you run through your deck, the more damage you're gonna get. And what's kind of cool though, although it has that deck building element, we said it's not deck building during the game. There's no time during the game you're buying or adding new cards to your deck. So you don't have to worry about that type of aspect of that. You just always have access to your full deck. And then there's monster reactions. I'm going to kind of flip through some of the rest of this a little bit quicker, just so we get through it. So the monster reactions trigger sting, trigger on one of the different colors. End of the round. After a player becomes threatened, when a player starts their turn in one of the different sectors, or if they have a special trigger, when you resolve another behavior, this is called a rampage icon. So they can just, if something else triggers, then the rampage icon trigger can trigger more and more. So just like the example of that is, Alice plays a maneuver card in a sequence, resolves all its effect in there. Then by playing the blue, she triggers the leftmost card in the slot, reveals it, and then she gets to do that. So yeah, pretty interesting. They get boost icons. Some behavior icons feature boost. Resolve the boost, remove the number of struggle tokens from the monster equal to the related cost, then resolve the ability. So this is kind of anyway, they get them struggle tokens when stuff happens, but then they can get cards that remove them, so they're not just going to always build up. But only if it has enough, so some of them might not even trigger. Then there are rampage cards. So here it's showing that they triggered the green card. They played a green card, triggered it. It's going to do whatever its effect is. Then it's going to immediately resolve this rampaging icon over here. And his finally Bob discards both the green and the trigger rampage cards and refills the slot the top 2 cards of the behavior deck. So you don't fill it up immediately, so you're not going to like do this, then draw, oh crap, there's another rampage, another rampage. But there can be multiple card resolutions in there, so this one is showing that he played a red card, and there was 2 red icons. After playing an attack card in their sequence, resolving all effects, try triggers both behavior cards that have the red reaction icon. To keep track of this, he puts a trigger token on each of those cards. As she reveals them, you pull the token out. That way you know, like, I have to do this one and this one, but you get to decide which order you do them in. And then here it's showing, since there are no rampage cards in play, discards behavior card and refills the top slot. So this is saying here, they trigger this, then they do the rampage, then they end everything. This one, however, is saying they do the red one, they finish it, then she drew a reaction because she had to refill it right away. Then she did the 3, did that one, then it triggers that one. Then both of those will go away, and then you draw 2 more. So you can get, so if you trigger multiple things, you can actually add more cards. It might add more triggers into the game, which is pretty crazy. Alright, and then we have succession and failure. Players succeed if they reduce a monster health to 0. Players can lose in 2 ways. When a player is KO'd, if there are no more players standing, you have failed the mission, or if you reach the end of round 10, you fail the scenario. So there is a time limit. So we have on the big board here, we have time limit. So that way, that is dictated so that you don't just be like, oh, I'm just going to dodge around until I get a good hand, right? Or they have 2 attack cards out. I'm just not going to attack this turn, so I don't trigger those cards. But then you're wasting your turn. So, and that's again very important why getting KO'd is bad, because you get KO'd, on round 4, and you can't play again until round 6. That's really gonna hurt. If you get KO'd on round 9, then it doesn't really matter anymore, right? And then we have try again. Don't get discouraged. Monsters are helping design to provide a challenging experience. If you fail, repeat the combat until you succeed. It says you should do this before you start the regular game. Now you learn how to play a game, you're going to play the prologue. Cool. So that was all. So that was half the instruction manual, just going through that. Then it's going to talk about all the campaign stuff. I'm not going to get into too much in there. Maybe I'll do a second video going over the campaign. But it's just showing all the rest of the components for the game. You can use the forge, get different forges. You can craft different items. As a reward, defeating each monster, receive resources can be combined to make elements. There are 2 categories: elements and materials. Contain materials from each body parts, blood, scales, stuff like that. And you put them in your crafting reserve. And then you can spend certain things: a fire element, a scale, and a blood to buy the red scale armor. Or you can do different conversion things. You can spend a fire element, a horn in place of a scale, and a sword in place of a blood to buy some red scale armor. You're like, I already upgraded to the fire sword. I don't need my basic sword anymore. So you can get rid of it. Or you can upgrade your fire sword by having that count as your fire elemental, your 2 different things, and upgrade to your level 2. So you have some different options of switching in between your different stuff to level up. And you might have multiple different swords, multiple different armors. And you have to sometimes decide what you can do. Same thing for potions. We have some different plant resources you get to pick up throughout the game. Then there's the deck building we kind of alluded to a little bit earlier. So as you hit certain levels, you can add these different pools to your deck. So it does show if you get A1, you have to have A1 to get A2, which gets you a new mastery card. But you could get A the first time, then you could decide either to get A2 or you could jump down and get D1. So you have some different choices there. You don't always have to go straight over. It's just going to be different stuff. And then different weapons, you'll have different card pools you can have. So the beginning one has all 6s. This one you have less defense or less maneuver cards and less dodge and attacks. So you have a smaller deck. So you lose 2, 3, 4 cards. But that means you're going to be a little bit more aggressive because you're going to draw your attack cards more often. Talked about the advantages of that. We have quest cards, which will trigger various different things. Like we said, they'll be on the board. You'll trigger these various quests, which will then go to quest scenario, quest rewards, and quest expiration. So, some quests will be available for limited time when you reach specific chapters. When a quest expires, so that quest is available, remove it from the game. So again, you can switch around to different options, but some of them might disappear, so you can't wait too long to do certain ones. There's an achievement system, characters, story phase, quest board, kind of say when you're crafting phase, and then when you go to the hunt phase, when you get to the hunt phase, you're just playing the game. so you don't have to no longer go back and, you're not hitting the shop in between different, you're hitting it between different missions, and then you can end the game. I'm not going to get into, again, too much of all of this right now. I'll look at this a little bit, but there's how you can set up the different decks. So level 0 for prologue, you only put behavior cards with these symbols, and then like that first one drops off for level 2, the first one drops off for level 3, and you gain a new one, and the same thing for level 4. So there's types of cards that will only be used in a prologue, and some that will only be used in level 3. And then like this one icon will be used through all the base games. So yeah, you get to kind of change up their abilities too, so they get a little bit different each time. You also get new quest rewards by doing this, which will unlock new forge card, crafting resources, plant resources. New achievements are being unlocked, new quests being unlocked, new cards being unlocked. Reward cards come in various types. Items, potions, and so on are identified by their reward ID. Along with rewards, you also find Keeper's Vision, which is special narrative content in the quest reward section. So yeah, you get a lot of interesting stuff there. It says, so in the campaign here, just saying, if you succeed and you have completed a quest, read the narrative for the quest, gain your rewards, add the monster to your trophies by marking on your campaign sheet, complete the discarded quest, and return to the box to advance to the next campaign chapter. If you failed, play through the chapter again, starting with the quest board. Place a failed quest back in its corresponding space. You can choose to play the same quest or decide to change the active to a different scenario. Hey, the fire monster was too hard for me. Let's go try the feather monster, right? So you have different options. Players not progress to the next chapter until they've successfully completed a quest. Note, when you play through the chapter again, keep all your resources, your crafted equipment, prepared potions, and any other consumed during the failed things. So it's kind of nice that if you use the potion at the beginning of the combat, you gotta keep it and try it again. Whether you succeed or fail, each player removes all their wounds from their deck at the end of the scenario. Monsters are designed to be tough, so losing a fight is all part of the experience. Failing a scenario will not compromise the continuation of your campaign unless you're playing the Hunter Trial variant. So you can keep losing over and over. It'll happen. End of the campaign, when you get there, you reach its final conclusion, and then there's a story with lots of questions you can figure out. You can save the game by keeping track of it on your board, and then pick up the expansions to add more monsters and hunters. And then there's a hunter variant. It's just basically you can only fail so many times. You have a defeat track. And you're trying to go for various rankings, which is kind of cool. And then there's the expedition we talked about, which is just a quick setup. Each monster can be played at 4 different levels, 0, 1, 2, 3. Hunter setup. So, if you choose level 0, you use the starting deck along with the starting deck set of cards. But then as you choose other levels, so if you play a level 1 monster, you get 2 upgrades. You play a level 3, you get 6 upgrades. So you get different options, you get different potions. So again, yeah, you can jump into this with upgrade armor. So it'd be a great way, like, okay, we're struggling in this campaign. Let's go back. Let's test out different armor and stuff. Let's test out this stuff without having to, like, read through all that stuff. Yeah, so we went through all those. This is also a fun aspect of the book I'm not going to look at too terribly much, but it is deck lists. So it's showing its starter deck, which is the cards will all have the S on it. But then they give you some great, quick deck lists if you like to start. So here it's showing if you're using the Dragon Claw weapon, a couple of stuff. Here's some different ways to build your deck. And then here's a deck listing 2 and deck listing 3. Now, it uses different potions throughout there, but it does have the same weapon and armor. And obviously, you can change those out if you like, which might just change what cards you have ability to. They just have, again, the same things. These are just kind of little variants for kind of like a pre-constructed beginning deck. It's not going to be for like a ton of different stuff. But then they did that for each character. So like a level 1, level 2, and level 3 weapons for each one, which is really fun that they included that in there. Then we have additional rules, all this different terrain tokens do different stuff throughout the game. When we look over the board and the monsters, we'll go over these a little bit more. But brush lets you recycle a dodge to hide in the brush. Fire does damage to you. A rock, so when you suffer attrition damage, you intersect with the rock, you may move that terrain to prevent that damage. You're hiding behind the rock. Plateau lets you jump off of it. Water hinders your movement. Bunch of different stuff there. There's all our monster trophies. Really cool symbols. Just behaviors and reactions if they want to keep track of that. So they did show some other reactions that weren't shown before. When they play a defensive card, when they play 2 offensive cards, 2 defensive cards. After a monster faces a different direction, a player moves. Player moves a section with water. End of the attrition phase. There's a bunch of different other ways they can trigger. After player empties their hand, player starts their turn. There's 1 player in its flank section. There's 1 in its rear section. As soon as it comes into play, it automatically triggers. Some have multiple reactions. You can trigger by either one of those. So it's pretty crazy. You can get some really neat stuff. Some monsters have special rules, special tokens, special cards. Some really fun stuff in there. We'll look at those a little bit more in depth when we get in there. Then finally, there's the Awakening, which I'm not going to get into right now. This is the boss of the game. But he gets a little bit crazier. So he actually has 5 stances. And then there's some extra stuff. I'm going to try to keep some of the spoilers down. Glossary, just for anything you need. For different icons and stuff per player, costs, all that. There's some different abilities. Just nice in the back of the book to be able to grab quick. Different cards, things are going to show up on different cards. Finisher, Firestorm for Vraxing, the monster. Hardened Heal X, you can heal some stuff. Yeah, some pretty cool stuff in there. Alright, so that's what we have for Primal The Awakening. This is really super long video. Apologize, but I wanted to get an idea of what everything was. We can come back and we can hit in parts 2 and so on to go through the different hunters, their different armors, their decks, their cards, all of that stuff. So I hope you guys stick with me for this long series of videos. If you guys have questions, comments, hit me up in the comment section. I'll definitely try and answer stuff as best as I can. I did not make the game or have anything to do with it. I'm just another player, so I'll do my best. See you guys later. Bye.